What I can say is if you had told me 3 or 5 years ago that I would be leaving my corporate career to launch a startup and manufacture mushroom products, I would have told you were insane. It was a dramatic change. I bought something to show you. I grew some lion's mane, which I've since taken off the top and I've used it for photo.
Look
But
at
I
that.
grew.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 184 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Today I am bringing you Bronwyn Carr, who is the founder of a company called Mind and Mane. And what you're going to learn today is before this incredible entrepreneurial journey that Bron is on. She's so lovely to talk to, by the way. You're just going to enjoy this so much, if for nothing more than her beautiful Australian accent. You're welcome. Before all of this, Bronwyn was a corporate lawyer for over 25 years, which means this is a woman who is incredibly accomplished, right? She has to research. She's got to know details. She's got to know the ins and outs of law, right? On the daily for 25 years. And she took all of that expertise and turned it towards her business, which she created out of a need she had herself. For those of you who are in your 40s, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know what I'm talking about, right? That perimenopause thing nobody wants to talk about. These hormone changes are so profound, and there are some women who doesn't affect too much, and there are others it is devastating for. Bronwyn happened to be on the other end of that. It was a little bit more on the devastating end for her. So here she was with this gorgeous, exquisite career where her brain was her biggest asset, and all of a sudden she's living with brain fog. She's living with fatigue. She's feeling moody and emotional and things she's never experienced in her whole life. And she refused to allow that to be normal for her. While the symptoms are normal, we don't have to keep them there. And that need for herself is how she created her company, Mind and Mane. And she's going to tell you all about this in today's podcast episode. But in full disclosure, as your podcast host, I do want to let you know I have been taking the Mind and Mane supplements as well over the last 6 months. And I can personally attest it is a profound difference. And I'm kind of stunned by it because I don't know about you. I think mushrooms, I think like, The Last of Us, or I think woo-woo stuff. So to have a woman who is this exquisite at detail and research in law tell me this is something that's going to make a difference, I believed her. And I really trusted it. And I'm so excited to share this story with you today for two reasons. One, if you are going through something and you're starting to discover a way to alleviate your own pain, I would love to encourage you to turn that into a business as well. This is how the world changes, and it's going to come from women. So if you're in that space, I hope today's podcast episode inspires you to keep going and to keep striving in your own life to share what you've found with more people. And two, if you are suffering from any kind of these symptoms, I would invite you to take advantage of the coupon code that Bron shares in this episode with us. We have that under the video if you're watching on YouTube. We have it in the show notes if you're listening. I encourage you to try it. Give it 30 days, see what happens for you. And no, I'm not an affiliate. I'm just another woman in her 40s who has found a profound difference. And we love it when women support women in making amazing changes. Yeah? All right, you guys, you are going to love this episode. Get ready to be inspired on a couple different levels. Pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Bronwyn, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I am beyond excited to have you here today because I know all about your journey and I'm so excited to share it with our listeners.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. I am so thrilled to be here. My first podcast, so I'm super excited to see how it goes.
We're breaking her in.
It's a big day.
That's so great. Well, I'm honored to be your first podcast. This is so super exciting. And I think, being on this journey with you for a while makes this all the more rewarding. So I know we all want to hear all about Mind and Mane, but before we do that, I really kind of want to ask you, because this is the biggest question most people listening have, is why is this what you're doing? And how the heck did we get here today? Can you just share a little bit of your background story with us? I'd love to share that with the audience.
Oh my God, how did we get here today? It's a hard question to answer. So what I can say is if you had told me 3 or 5 years ago that I would be leaving my corporate career to launch a startup and manufacture mushroom products, I would have told you were insane. So that's the first thing. But the journey in terms of how did I get here? So I'm Bronwyn. I've been a corporate lawyer for 25 years.
Wow.
And I've had experience working around the world. I'm the proud mum of 2 teens. And now I'm an entrepreneur and a small business owner. And what drove that transition? So I was fortunate enough to work for American Express, which is one of the best companies on earth. And I worked for that company for 15 years, a little over 15 years. And, I had an incredibly exciting time there. I was the general counsel for American Express in Australia and New Zealand for about 7 years. And then I was promoted here to New York to lead up all of the lawyers for our global commercial services division.
Wow.
And in that incredible ride, I have done things I never could have dreamed of. I launched helped launch hundreds of commercial products all around the world. I worked on major high-profile acquisitions. I led many partnership negotiations. I represented American Express in front of regulators and courts and government bodies. I was the right-hand advisor to a range of CEOs and boards and senior executives. So, it has been such a thrilling journey, and I loved every minute of it. I mean, I'm good at being a lawyer, and I really enjoyed it. I also had the benefit at American Express of working and having many leadership opportunities. And so I've always been passionate about women and women's issues and women's careers. And so I was the US co-lead for a number of years of the American Express Executive Women's Interest Network.
Wow.
I was also the executive sponsor in Australia of our diversity committee, which was focused on women returning to the workplace. How do we engage them? How do we support them? And so, I had these amazing opportunities throughout my career.
Incredible.
And then my early 40s hit, and I had a pretty serious brush with ovarian cancer, which led me to having a hysterectomy, which led me into perimenopause very suddenly and very unexpectedly and very young. And so I then went on to really struggle with perimenopause symptoms for, I'm going to say, over 5 years, 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And I mean, it was big. And so what I found was that suddenly I was at the peak of my career and I was incredibly burned out. I was constantly exhausted. I was so fatigued. My brain fog was so thick. I was scared about my ability to even keep doing my job.
Wow.
My anxiety was just off the charts. So much so, I ended up on antidepressants. I mean, I literally couldn't get out of bed.
Wow.
And my mood swings, and I don't know how many of your listeners experience this, right? But I mean, I've never been an incredibly moody person, and yet I found I would be one moment crying, the next minute I would be laughing hysterically, the next minute I wanted to go to sleep, and none of the reactions seemed to fit the driver, the event that had happened. So I knew that something was up. I couldn't find anything to help. So I started researching mushrooms and I discovered Mind and Main, and here we are.
Oh my God. So hold on. I'm sorry. Can we just back up? Could you be any more accomplished? Like, can we just start there? Like, oh my God. So one of the biggest companies on the planet moved you from a very, very large space, right? All of Australia and New Zealand, and then moved you to the hub of finance, which is New York. So you could, I don't know, lead up all the lawyers, and run the entire division around like women and inclusiveness and diversity. Do I have that right?
Well, you're very kind to frame it in that way. Thank you. And I'm incredibly flattered because I'm the only lawyer that American Express has ever transferred from international into an executive role in New York. And so it was an incredible honor and an incredible journey.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, we need to stick a pin in that for a second. So here you are, incredibly accomplished. you know how to do. Clearly, you're very adaptable. You've got a boatload of grit. You don't mess around. I'm sure your ability to research has got to be off the charts, to be trusted with contracts at that level, down to the details that a lawyer must know, that a lawyer must understand. That is a lot of work to have on your shoulders. You're able to handle it well. You move your whole family internationally. You're doing all these things, and all of a sudden your body is like, hey, let's throw this in the mix and see what happens to Braun. Is it sort of like, let's make her cry, let's make her laugh, let's see what happens. That must have felt almost like, not to be funny, but almost like an out-of-body experience, because I would imagine for most of your life, Braun, you were incredibly, I want to say in control, not like I don't mean that like a control freak, but in control. Like you had really created your own destiny. You designed your own life. You were doing all these extraordinary things. You're the only lawyer Amex has ever moved, right? And here you are faced with something that is completely new and totally like beyond your control. And it makes so much sense to me that given that background, what you did with that was begin to research. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Look, I honestly thought I was going crazy. I felt like I was losing myself, for a year. I literally felt like I've lost my personality. I could feel it disappearing. I could feel myself just the mood swings, shouting at my kids and my family all the time. I couldn't enjoy the things that I love most in life, my horses, my riding. Like I couldn't enjoy and embrace those things because I was just so preoccupied and just miserable and felt overwhelmed all the time. So honestly, just hard to believe. And so, it's a common thing. The more I've researched about it and the more I've spoken to people, it's a common thing during perimenopause. But to your point, research is my bag, right? I'm a lawyer. We like to research. And so I'm an information person. And so that's what I started to do. I started to dig into, I tried everything. I tried everything on the planet. I did not want to take hormone replacement therapy because of my cancer scare. And I didn't want to be living my whole life on antidepressants. And so I wanted something natural. I'm not really a big medicine person unless I really need it. And so I was looking for a natural solution and I tried everything. I've taken every supplement that's touted to be for menopause. I've done exercise programs, organic eating programs, like you name it. And so I did absolutely everything I could find and nothing worked. And I spent so much money and time trying. So I'm in the middle of COVID and I was really, really struggling. And I started researching menopause symptoms, menopause treatments, like what can I possibly do? I've got to do something. Like I'm the breadwinner for my family and I can't function. So what do I do? So I ended up coming across mushrooms and I started researching mushrooms. And the more and more I dug into it, I was really astounded. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of trials out there, human trials, clinical trials, animal trials, looking at a range of mushrooms. But most, the most trials are on these two particular types of mushroom I chose for my formulation. Okay. So I read all these studies, right? And they're coming out with the most amazing sort of findings. And so I just was blown away by what these trials were saying. And so, there's so many key properties in these mushrooms that fight disease. There's antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, anti-diabetic, anti-cancer, even neuroprotective properties are, believed to be in these mushrooms. There's significant improvements that were recorded for people suffering Alzheimer's, dementia, various sort of forms of cognitive decline. Not to mention they can significantly improve immune strength. And there's all these studies showing that, various types of disease, it could be cardiovascular, cancers, diabetes, like brain diseases, various types of disease pathways are created because we have an excess of inflammation in our bodies. Right. And what happens is the cells get damaged. And when the cells get damaged, the cells die. That's called apoptosis. And when the cells die, you start to get disease forming. And so the rationale is that the more that you can get high quality anti-inflammatories and antioxidants into your body, it helps your body fight that process. So it not only slows down the death of the cells and the disease process in the cells, but it increases your ability to create new cells, new neural pathways, and create cell regeneration. So yeah, there were studies that were showing amazing improvements for women in menopause, people facing chemotherapy treatment, so I read all this stuff and I was like, this is amazing. The Chinese have been using it for 2,000 years, right? It must work. So
right.
I was hooked.
I'm sitting here listening and I'm like, this sounds just too good to be true. I mean, did you have that reaction at all? Like, I'm listening to this going, how the hell is this possible? And why do we not know about it? Right. Did you have that sort of feeling as you were studying too, of like, this is incredible?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm like, how does everybody not know about this? So what was the first thing? What was the first thing I did? I went and started buying every mushroom product on the market, like you name it. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to fix my symptoms. So I started taking all these mushroom products. And look, a couple of them helped a little.
Okay.
But I was really like, why aren't they working? Like, look at all these trials. They're saying they have all these results, but yet I'm not feeling it. So why
you're
isn't
looking at like the hardcore data is saying this is what research is finding, this is what these trials are producing, but then you went to market and you were like, meh, meh. Like this is not here, this is not matching. That was the experience. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I was like, how can this be? Like, what is going on here? So again, I'm researching, right? I'm reading all these products. I'm reading the labels. I'm reading the trials. I'm saying, well, what mushrooms did they use? Maybe it's the type of mushroom. And what I discovered is it really comes down to three very simple things. The first thing is the dosage. So when they do these trials, they give people 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams daily of the mushrooms, and they treat the mushrooms in very specific ways. So you've got a big dosage. Then I looked at the products out there. Some of them have 100, 200, maybe 500 if it's a good product, not 5,000. And so the dosage alone, you're getting a teeny tiny amount of the active ingredients, which is why, the products for me weren't working.
Got it.
And then the second thing is fruiting bodies. So if you take mushroom products, have a look at your labels, right? And if it does not say fruiting bodies, then what it means is you're getting mycelium. And mycelium are the roots of the mushroom. And I bought something to show you. I grew some lion's mane, which I've since taken off the top, and I've used it for photos. But I grew this, right? And so this is how they grow mushrooms. Now, the beautiful lion's mane mushroom was up here, and this here is below the ground. And in the outside here is this huge filament of mushroom roots. And the mushroom roots themselves have some great health benefits, but the mushroom roots are grown in filler, right? They're grown in brown rice. It could be wood chips. It could be any type of filler. And when you buy most mushroom products, they just take those roots, they grind up the whole ball that you just saw, and they put that in your capsules. And so what you're getting is all these unknown fillers, none of which are disclosed on the label. So you don't know what you're ingesting. And of course, it's diluted because you're only getting like the mushroom filaments rather than, so fruiting bodies, look for those, because if it doesn't say it, you're not getting them.
That sounds like such a big deal.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's reminding me of the whole vitamin industry. Like they're like, here's all this stuff, but like, meanwhile, it's like 90% the capsule. It's what you're actually ingesting, and like, 10% the vitamin. It sounds like it's very similar to that. So really being educated about what's in it is a big deal. So we have dosage, we have fruiting body. What's the third thing that we really want to look for?
The third one is extraction. So what extraction means is when they have the mushroom fruiting body, there's basically two ways that it can be created. They can either dry the mushroom and grind them up and put them in your capsule. Okay. And that's what a lot of companies do because extraction is very expensive. The second option is when they extract, they take hot water, or they may take hot water and alcohol, and they boil those mushrooms down and boil them and boil them and boil them over a very long period of time. And it brings out the essence of the ingredients. And so why is that important, you might say? Well, mushrooms, I've discovered, these are my years of research here. So mushrooms have cells in them which they're made up of a product called chitin. And chitin protects the cell wall of the mushroom, but it is not absorbable by our bodies. And the reason that all these scientific studies use mushroom extracts is because when they boil down the mushroom, it breaks down the chitin, which means your body is able to absorb the active ingredients and the nutrients.
I got
So
it.
you need to have extracts. If your label does not say extracts, you are not getting extracts because they are so much more expensive. So that's really the takeaway. If you want to try mushroom products, and I encourage you to, then take a look at your labels, look at them closely. And if you do not see a very clear dosage and a significant dosage, if you don't see fruiting bodies and you don't see extracts, then you are probably getting a suboptimal product.
Wow. Okay. So you must have been, you guys, my head is spinning because I'm like sitting here going, you're like the research master, I think maybe of anyone I've ever met. So I'm like, yes, I just am going to take in what you're saying because I know you didn't research this lightly over years and years. When you were going through this and you are watching these other products, you're trying to figure this out because you have these crazy symptoms going on. The brain fog is almost untenable. You want something to work so badly, nothing's working. Did you just start experimenting on you? I have to ask, were you like, hold please, I'm going to create something here and see what the effects are?
Oh, absolutely. Of course. I mean,
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
I was desperate. I mean, I literally felt like I couldn't function. I remember driving into New York City, crying in the car. And I am not a person who does that, right? I've always been a successfully driven, successful sort of business person, right? And I've just never, and I was like, who the hell is this person? So I was desperate. And so I was willing to try anything. And so after I'd sort of read the reports and couldn't work out why they weren't working, and then I started to piece it together, I just started to source the best mushrooms that I could, and I started trying them, and I started playing with dosages. I tried different types of mushrooms until I found a formulation. And what I discovered, this is interesting, when you get really, really good quality mushrooms and you get them in a high enough dosage to be like the trials, they taste terrible. They are so bitter. They are so bitter. And so I was like trying to work out, do I take 10 capsules a day, or do I can I make it into a fit? Like, what can I do to make this easier for me to take? And so, yeah, that's really where it started. And I did experiment on myself. Once I found the formulation, I mean, truly, I think I've told you the story before. I knew within probably a week. I could feel it straight away. I was like, wow. And I've since found most of my customers report definitely within 3 to 4 weeks. They're like, wow, I've got it. I can feel it. And it just continues over time. But yeah, I was definitely the guinea pig on this one. And so were many of my friends and family for a long time before I brought it to market.
Yeah, it is so great. So, okay, so it is to market now. Like, people can go and try Mind and Mane as of today. That's true, right?
Absolutely.
Yay.
We have a website and we're selling it. It comes in a range of delicious products. So I've managed to put it into flavored oatmeal and chocolate drinks, coffee drinks, which you can have hot or iced. There's capsules for your busy days. So it's on www.mindandmane.com. I would love for you to go and check out the site and maybe follow us on social media or join our mailing list if you'd like to find out more. Or just reach out to me. You can see this is my passion, and it's really hard to get me to stop talking about it. So
No,
I'm happy to talk to you.
I just know somebody's listening or watching. Like, I just know someone is either listening or watching and going, oh dear God, where do I get it? I was like, we have to pause for a second and let people know this is actually something they can go get, because I could see it being like, oh, I heard this on a podcast one time, and I know I'm supposed to look for fruiting bodies or something, but how much easier would it actually be just to go and snag it? And so for you though, Bron, as the entrepreneur's journey, right? Because so many of our listeners, of our girlfriends, right? They're entrepreneurs who are in that moment of like, oh my God, do I have a thing here? Can I do this? Can I actually bring this to market? Can you share with us a little bit, like, what was that like for you? Like, here you're crying in the car, right? Experimenting on yourself after doing all this research. What really was the moment for you? Or actually, let me ask a really specific question. How did you take it from, I'm going to try this on me, to let me ask someone else to try it too?
Yeah. So I was taking it myself for a few months, like probably 3 months. I was taking it every day. And after 3 months, I weaned myself off my antidepressant. I've never had it
Wow.
since. I've never needed it since. And by that stage, I was really saying to my husband, my family members, like, this is amazing. Like, I don't know how this has happened, but I have stumbled across some sort of miracle here. My career was taking off again. I was super, super focused. I was getting joy back in my life. I was powering through my to-do list. I mean, it was a dramatic, dramatic change. And so I just started getting this kernel of an idea that it was like, oh my God, I think I was born to do this. Like, I think
Mm,
I was
mm,
meant to find this thing.
mm.
And I'm not just going to sit on it and not tell anyone about it. How many women are there out there like me who are brilliant and great at what they do and so hardworking, and they are stuck,
Mm.
and they are exhausted? I mean, look, we women, you got to give it to us, right? We get all the shit done. We're juggling the balls. We're caring for everybody around us. And we just keep giving and giving and giving and giving. And I think perimenopause can be a turning point where
Yeah.
things get dramatically worse. But think
Mhm,
about the 10 years leading up to that.
mhm,
We are exhausted and
mhm.
depleted because we're constantly giving out and not necessarily getting the nutrition we need. And so, I just think that there are so many women in that situation that I've spoken to over the years. And I just want to have an opportunity to share this magic that I found and get it out there. And hopefully I can help a whole bunch of other women in the process.
I love it. I love it. I do. I know that feeling. And I think I've had a lot of women on the podcast who've shared that feeling too, where it's like, oh my gosh, is this what I was put here to actually do? Everything
Mhm.
from like helping people take care of curly hair to helping people understand their finances to helping people with a certain mood disorder, like whatever it is, that there comes this moment of like, I think I just found something amazing. Now I have to learn how to share it. I mean, I think that really is a big shift for so many entrepreneurs. You this incredibly accomplished career, which is fine and amazing, but it's not the same as having this massive passion. But it's like there's a whole skill set that comes with this too. It's so great to have the product and figure this out and do all these things. And then there is actually starting to share it. And I think it's just so extraordinary that you've been able to make that shift and really proudly say, hey, world, I figured something out you might want to come try. I think that's just so great.
Well, well, thank you. And I must say, it was probably about 18 months while I was working, doing the big career, and then dreaming and thinking about this in the background, right? And I started having friends try it, and then friends of friends tried it. And I kept getting consistent feedback from them. So I was kind of like, oh my God, like, maybe this is really a thing. Like, I really need to think about doing this in a real way. That was a crazy, crazy 18 months. I have to tell you, like trying to design the product, design packaging, get a website, like actually think about how I would do this. I
Mhm.
mean, I've never done this before. How on earth do I manufacture a nutritional supplement and bring it to market, right? So yeah, that was a crazy, crazy time. And yeah, it's very different being an entrepreneur, as you know better than most. But my God, it's different than the corporate life. Talk about being the jack of all trades and having to learn everything and do everything and work out what you can outsource. So yeah, it's been a massive learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it? It's so humbling, isn't it? Of like, yes, I'll take out the garbage and I will be the keynote speaker. Like, it's like, yes, I'll do all the things. Cause when it's us launching something, I mean, that really is what it takes. And I think, probably all that experience on the legal side, that must have been so valuable for you in your business to know that you could really handle that piece of it, that side of it, and make sure everything was buttoned up and make sure you were bringing the best product that you could to market. That must have just been it is so I want to use the word gratifying, just to be able to say, look what I was able to take all this training from like some of the biggest names in the world and turn it towards my passion so I could offer something amazing to women going through hard times.
Well, do you know what was really funny about that? So, as I said, I'd had a lot of leadership roles and I was on a lot of, committees and so forth.
Mm,
And so I was often called upon to, be on panels or mentor people and speak to groups. And one of the things that, I had always talked to the lawyers working for me and various colleagues was how to manage the juggle, particularly when you're in the middle of it, right? You're a working mum, perhaps, but you're juggling family responsibilities. It's just, we're doing it all, right? And it's incredibly exhausting. And so I always had these like pointers that I would share with people. And so I follow those. I basically followed what I preached, and it helped get me through that crazy 18-month period. But what my takeaways were, I had three. I had this rule. I try and always put things in threes because it's easier for my brain to remember. And so I had these three takeaways. The first one is what I call the 4Ds. And so if you are just juggling so much, right, the first thing I would do is I say, take your to-do list, allocate reasonable timeframes for everything that's on it, and sit down with your calendar and put it on your calendar. And if there is not time, and the other thing is put sleep on there, put some exercise or whatever it is that you need to do to keep yourself afloat, put those things on the calendar. And whatever in your to-do list doesn't fit, then just accept it is not going to get done and do something about it. And so then I would say move to the 4Ds, right? You delegate it, you delay it, you delete it, or if you absolutely can't, then you dilute it. And by that I mean some things you can do on 50% or 80%. Not everything needs 100% of your effort. And so maybe try doing something at 50%. Just get it out, get it done, and wait and see. If someone comes back and says, hey, I need a bit more here, well, okay, you bought yourself some time, you can deal with it then. So
I love that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I would always do the 4Ds. My second tip was journaling. I've never really had a lot of time for journaling, but one thing I do find incredibly helpful though, and I'll just jot this in my phone every morning, like 10 minutes before I get out of bed. I love saying to myself, what is the one thing that if I do it today is going to make today great? One thing. And then I just make sure that no matter what happens, do the one thing, because then I will go to bed and I will feel proud of what I've done that day. Even if everything else goes to crap and doesn't happen, that one thing I can feel good about. So that's my second point. And then my third one is create boundaries. I think women don't do that enough. And, I think you need to create them. I think you need to communicate them clearly and do not ask for permission. I'm sorry, I need to leave work at 5 because I have responsibilities with my kids tonight. No apologies. I will be available I can be available from 8 a.m. I can move other meetings for you, but whatever it is. And I really always impressed upon my colleagues in the workplace, that helps you become a role model for other women because there are always other people hearing you and seeing your behaviors. And so if you are prepared to have those boundaries and be very proud, not be proud of them, but be direct about them, then you're showing, you're creating the path for other women to have the confidence to do the same thing. And you'd be really surprised. I've learned in life, you create boundaries and it's amazing how people often just don't push against them. People just go, okay.
Yes. And I so appreciate you talking about that inside this conversation of watching your physiology betray you. You're like, I'm this high-powered lawyer and the physiology is not doing what I tell it to do, right? Inside of that, creating boundaries there, and then creating boundaries around our workday, and then creating boundaries as an entrepreneur. I think this is just such a critical tip that people take from today in being able to launch a business like you're doing and do it well, as hard as it is.
Indeed, incredibly hard.
It really is. Yeah, but I bet being able to have your physiology finally match where you were expecting it to be because you had figured this out with your supplements, that must have meant the world to you.
Oh my God. I mean, you can't put a price on it, right? Feeling like I'm myself again. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where the hell I went for about 5 or 6 years, but thank God I'm back. Like it was awful.
Me. Yeah, I missed me. Yeah.
It's amazing, right? And women, I really, really want to impress this on our listeners. And honestly, we need to talk about perimenopause. It should not be a secret or something that, we're scared to talk about. I mean, there are 31 million women today between the ages of 45 and 60 here in the US. So just over 10% or about 10% of the population. and 1.3 million women enter menopause every year.
Yeah.
So this happens to all of us. It lasts on average 7 years. I think the usual onset is somewhere between 45 and 55. So we all suffer it, but there's really not very much known about it. And there's not a lot of talking about it that happens. And I think that a lot of women may feel like I did, that there is something deeply flawed about me. There's something wrong with me. Like, I'm crazy.
Yeah.
There is something wrong with me. And I'm here to tell you, like, if you are suffering the typical symptoms, and those are, hot flashes, exhaustion, brain fog, memory loss, extreme mood swings, sleep disruptions. For many women, it's anxiety and depression. If you are suffering these things, and they can feel crippling, I just want you to know it is not you, okay? There are massive hormonal changes that are happening and that we are trying to navigate. And so, you think about when women go into this phase of our lives, look at where we've been for the last 10 years. Most of us have been already run down, depleted.
Mm-hmm.
We're raising kids. We're creating a career. We're juggling everything. Some of us dealing with illness or divorce or whatever it is, right? We've got all the stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then we get hit with this hormonal tsunami. Like, it's so unfair. It's insane. And so I really feel that for anyone who's in that position, it is not you. It is normal. You do not have to live with this, right? There are remedies out there, whether you want to go and try hormone replacement therapy, whether you want to try Mind and Main, try something. You do not need to feel that way. And then the next thing, I love to think about perimenopause this way. I wish we would think about it as a rite of passage. Because you think about it, by the time we get to our 40s, we know what's important to us. We know what we need. We're less prepared to put up with people's bullshit.
Boundaries.
We absolutely. We have accumulated so much wisdom and life experience. What if we'd have had that in our 20s and 30s? Like, imagine how fantastic life would have been with all that knowledge. And so I think we should be proud of it. I think we should share it. And I think we should be grateful for it, because living to middle age is a privilege that is denied to a lot of us. And so, it has the potential to be the best time in our lives if we're healthy as we go through it. And so I encourage women to share perimenopause and don't shy away from the symptoms. And, if you're the person who doesn't really look after yourself as much as perhaps you should, then I'd ask you to think about this. This struck me recently. Think about yourself as a role model. And I think we touched on this before. But think about your daughter, your goddaughter, your niece, younger women that you work with in the workplace. Show them what it can be to be a middle-aged woman who is healthy and happy and focused and killing it in her career and, getting all the shit done, juggling all the balls and doing it with some joy in our life. Yeah. Don't show them the woman, who is just constantly exhausted, depleted, angry, crying, frustrated, whatever it may be, because we deserve better. And so do they, and this really struck me a couple of years back. My daughter had said to me, I'm never having kids and I'm never being a lawyer. And I was like, why would you say that?
Right.
Why would you say that? Right. And she said, well, look at you. You never stop working and you're always angry.
Right to the heart.
Gutted.
Right to the heart.
I was gutted. I was like, what do you mean I'm always angry? I'm not always angry. But that was her perception of me. When I really looked at where I'd been for the last 5 years, she wasn't wrong, right? It was tough. And so, I just encourage us all to think about being a role model for the other women in our lives and looking after ourselves enough to do that well.
Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. I'm a little bit speechless after that. Because I've had those moments with my kids too, where it's just, they're like, hello, And so grateful that they do that, because I do think being a role model is one of the most powerful tools we can pick up as women, right? When it gets hard for us to stop and go, wait a sec, what do I need? And when we do that, much like setting boundaries or the lawyer I shared, like when we do that, when we take care of ourselves, when we set boundaries, when we prioritize self-care and health and nutrition, we're giving permission to other people who are watching to do the same. Or even if they're not watching and they're just next to us, like, oh, what are you doing? What's that? What's this? To explore that together and to tell the truth about, how powerful these hormones are in our bodies and the symptoms that those cause. It's real. I always joke we're big bags of chemicals, right? Because we really are. And so to find something that could help alleviate that and bring you back to that clarity of mind and that power, that strength, that ability to think and smile and enjoy again. I mean, that is just life-changing. And on that note, Bron, I believe if someone's listening and they're like, I'm going to get Mind and Main, can I have it inserted in my body like right now? I believe you have a special gift for our listeners. Is that right?
I do. Of course I do, Sarah. I'm so grateful to be here. And so please, if any of your listeners would like to try Mind and Main, I'd be so delighted. And they can go to our website and they can enter in the discount code GameOnGirlfriend15. And what that's going to do is it is going to give you our monthly product, and you can choose to have it in, you can customize it to whatever you like. You can just pick a sort of a range of our different products. And what it allows you to do is it gives you a once a day serving that you can have in food, drink, or capsules. And I'm going to give an extra 15 sets of capsules because for your first month, it's really great to get a loading dose and to really get your body pumping with all of the mushroom goodness and really kind of set yourself up well so that you really can notice those changes quite quickly. So I'll be giving away an extra 15 servings on top of our normal 30 servings so that you will get that benefit for your first month. I hope that some people will get to try that and enjoy it.
Ah, Bron, that's huge. You guys go get it. Go get it. In full disclosure, I've been taking it for about 6 months. It's freaking amazing. So grateful to have you on, Bron. And I think we're going to have to track your journey. So maybe we'll have to have you back in about a year. Let's see how things are going. I'd love to hear how Mind and Main is progressing, how you are progressing, how you are continuing to be a role model for so many women out there. It's been such a joy to get to spend some time with you today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
I can't thank you enough, Sarah. Great to see you.